Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Netflix original series, Stranger Things. I will go ahead and warn you before you go any further, this will contain spoilers. I'm going to be talking about the entire season, thoughts about it, just running through everything, not in any particular order, but whatever comes to my mind and what I want to talk about. So, you have been warned. So how I felt about the series in general, fantastic. I'd heard like one or two things from people like just being saying like, yo, you need to check it out. It's something, something nice. And no one really gave any details about it. I finally decided, you know what? I got a lot of free time. It's like I finally got on Netflix after a long time. It's like, it's one of the first series that kind of popped up in my queue. So I was like, all right, let me watch it. Checked it out. Like I said, fantastic. Loved every bit of it. It's just every episode kept gripping me. I was like, all right, gotta watch another episode. All right, gotta watch another episode. Gotta watch another episode. I will note that I was very surprised it was as short as it was. I was expecting it to kind of be like 10 episodes, but I'm very surprised to find out it was like 8 episodes. Because the moment we got to the 8th episode, like the moment you're like halfway through, I'm like, wait a minute, this seems like some kind of like finale stuff. This doesn't seem like, it's like, oh, then what do they have planned for the next? Oh, episode 8 is the last episode. So, but overall, just every little twist and turn in this series was very good. It does have a very good mystery element to it, like, finding out like all these different secrets, like particularly like all the characters figuring out everything. What I love the fact is every one of the main characters and the characters you kind of see the most frequently all had a piece of the puzzle. And it's just like, oh, the kids have a bit of the puzzle. Nancy and Jonathan ended up getting a piece of the puzzle. Hooper and Joyce end up having a piece of the puzzle. It's like everyone had pieces of the puzzle. It's just they need to come together and piece everything together, which they eventually did, which I was like, it's so amazing because it's like everyone's filling each other in. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what's going down. I really liked how it worked. Like the veil of shadows, I thought that was very interesting. I kind of picked up on it pretty early on. I was like, oh, it's like an alternate parallel world where everything's the same, yet it's just kind of flipped. I love their explanation of it, particularly Eleven's like explanation of it being like basically an upside down world. I thought that was pretty cool. We didn't really get too much of we got looks at it here and there, but that was kind of just only in that town. And the only thing we seen that was in there was that monster, I forgot what it was they called it. It was basically a monster based from the game they were playing. I'm guessing it's D&D. I think it was. Because I think at one or two points they actually mentioned it was exactly D&D. Because I don't know. I didn't want to just assume. It could have easily been any other board game. But I'm pretty sure it was D&D. Which I really like. The fact of the matter is that's what they were playing at the beginning. And at the end of it too. Just nerding it up. I don't know. I just appreciate it for some reason. I don't know why. I guess because I've recently got an appreciation from the game D&D. I know it's stupid. It has nothing to do with it, but nevertheless, I really appreciate our little main protagonist. Like even when I was starting this, I didn't expect the kids to be the big focus of it. I thought it was just like, okay, when Will goes missing, it's like, okay, mainly it focus on adults. It's like, no, the adults played a part in it, but it was like the main focus was on the kids as well. It's like, and they were pretty good protagonists. I really like that. Obviously, you have Mike being the more leader-ish of the group. He's the one kind of pushing forward. He's the one kind of slowly piecing everything together, and he's also the one obviously falling for 11. That was kind of pretty obvious. And he was kind of the only one that was kind of reluctant to really notice it. I did like the conversation him and Nancy had later on. It's basically like when everything was said and done, they're like, no more secrets. So she's like, so are you and he's like, are you and Jonathan going out? She's like, no, it's nothing like that. Do you like 11? He's like, what? No, ew, that's gross. And then you see Nancy kind of smirk because she knows that's not true. But like, they are such a well-oiled machine. Like it's so crazy because you see that in certain series where it's kind of like, okay, you got teenagers who have to deal with a situation, but these are little kids. They're pre-teens having to deal with this type of situation. It's like adults can barely handle this situation. You got kids around here doing it. That's pretty impressive. They're the ones keeping essentially their shit together. And I don't know why. I got little giggles out of it every time they curse because it's just like, because I feel like that's such a real reaction, like the cursing in these situations, like, well, shit. Especially Dustin. I felt so bad for him because he's got his missing teeth and he's just talking like that the entire series. And you have Lucas kind of being the more like, what's the word I'm looking for? The most suspicious, because he was the one that was very against 11 from the very beginning, and then just eventually he like things smoothed over, but he was the most antagonistic towards her because it's just like you can't trust her. Like, we got a mission, we got to find Will, and that's it. Like, don't trust this weirdo. Don't get close to her. Or the reason why you're trying to get close to her is because she's a girl that's not completely disgusted with you. We're just kind of like, ooh, that's a low bro, a low blow, bro. I don't know why I said that's a low bro. I'm stupid. But I did like the fact is, even though Dustin seemed like he was going to be like the idiot of the group, he's the one that helped figure out a lot of stuff too, like the whole like being able to track down the gate because of the compasses, like the magnetic field in it, like making the compasses point the wrong way. It was pretty smart on his part there. Plus, when Mike and Lucas had the falling out, he was the one there to kind of act as the mediator. He was kind of the more rational one between him. He was like, yeah, basically all three of you are acting like assholes, including 11, because she's keeping things from us as well. But you two were acting like idiots. And it's like, obviously, I know why Lucas is doing it. You're completely oblivious to it. He's your best friend, and he's just mad because you're spending so much time and you being so focused on 11, essentially being a little jealous. But then Mike was like, it's not just him, all of you are my best friends. It's like, oh, that's sweet. I'm sure Dustin appreciated it because he was like, no, he's your best friend, I know, because I didn't move here until I was in the 4th grade, and he's like lives like a block away from me. So but they were just, it just surprised me just how well they handled this whole situation, just being kids. I did appreciate the fact is that they tried to like weapon up, got Lucas with his slingshot, they got rocks and everything. And the fact is that Dustin had to be kind of the foodie of the group, packing nothing but food. And Lucas and Mike are looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you just packing food, dude? I did like near the end when is it the Demagon? The thing, it's what they basically call the monster from the Veil. Basically, when Lucas threw a rock at it and it went flying back and hit the wall, and they're like, whoa! And then they see that it's 11, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of 11, I really like her character. It's just kind of like, especially when it's all revealed, being like, oh yeah, the person that's running the experiments on her is her dad, which not really her dad. I mean, I don't know. Like, we got introduced to her mom, but or her real mom, Terry, but we never really got an answer on the dad part. Was the guy running the experiments really her dad? She referred to him as Papa. I mean, she was basically taken away from her mom when she was like very young. Basically, they made the mom think she had a miscarriage, but she wasn't stupid. She figured there was some kind of shady crap going on. But all the experiments they were running back then kind of messed with her brain a little bit. Everyone thinks she was just nuts. And, that's kind of something sad too, is like, that was never kind of, wasn't her real name Jane? 11 was never actually able to meet her real mom. So that was kind of, or her aunt, it's just, yeah. But I mean, getting back to what I was saying, the fact is that she referred to the guy as Papa, but, that's probably because he just made her think like, oh, I'm your dad. But it's like, no, whether he really is or not, I don't know. It was kind of sad finding out like he pushed her in all those experiments, saw what it was doing to her, making her nose bleed, her ear bleed. He even was like, there was that sick moment when those guys were about to lock her up in that little room they had, that basically she pushed that one guy against the wall and snapped the other dude's neck. She's bleeding from her ear and her nose, and he comes over and he hugs her just because he's so proud of her. It's like, that's so disgusting, because he was going to lock her up because she didn't do what he wanted her to. I assume he wanted her to use her powers to kill the cat, but she didn't want to, because we kind of already saw what she could do when she crushed the can. That was pretty impressive, because that was something I was constantly thinking back and throughout that whole show, is like, what is the extent of her powers? I mean, we kept seeing throughout the series of like, oh, how like the big ramifications of it would be that her nose was bleeding, and it just kind of took it out of her. She ended up passing out on a few occasions. But it seems like, telekinesis, as well as some kind of psychic ability of being able to cross between the barriers between this world and that other world of the Veil, as well as, because she kind of did that. She kind of acted as like a radio signal for the like the walkie-talkies or whatever too, she was able to kind of shift, like it's like her brain waves flow on certain frequencies. Like it's like this world exists in its own frequency and that world exists in its own frequencies, and then she's able to shift that frequency and make it kind of audible for us. I really like the fact is that she was super, like how she ended up misguiding the guys, because it's what set Lucas off in the first place. Is she was using her powers to mess with their compasses, because she didn't want to. She knew exactly where the gate was the entire time, but she kept telling them she didn't, because she didn't want to go back to the facility. For one, because she was worried about them. It's like she saw that thing firsthand. She's like, I don't want you guys to get hurt. But it's also because it meant going back to the facility and being a test subject again. Which, granted, by the end of it, we do see that her papa ends up getting brutally murdered. Well, we don't get to see him being brutally murdered, but it seems like the monster got a hold of him. And speaking of the monster, I like the little trap that Jonathan and Nancy set for him. That was something I was kind of curious about, that whole thing, Jonathan and Nancy, whether that actually be a relationship there or not. But as we saw at the end of it, it's like, nope, she's with Steven. It seems like they still harbor feelings for each other, because it's like, even though she's with Steven, you do see kind of that the loneliness in her, like that he kind of brought up earlier in the series. Basically that she's trying to be someone else, fit another mold just so she doesn't feel lonely. I will admit that whole Steven thing, like I already knew he was going to be an asshole from the very beginning, especially when he told her, like when Barb went missing, and it's just like, yeah, don't tell her about the whole, drinking thing, you can come leave that out. It's like, my best friend is missing and you worried about being in trouble for that. And it's just he was an asshole about everything. I knew that whole Jonathan and her, Nancy working together to do that whole, like, trying to deal with the monster thing, like he saw them. I knew that was going to happen eventually, that he was going to take it as a misunderstanding, and he lost his mind and basically went along with that dude and his girl, like basically calling Nancy a slut. And then Jonathan beat the crap out of him like that. But he did redeem himself, which kind of caught me by surprise. Like I was wondering, it's like, okay, he showed up when they were, after they set up the traps at Jonathan's house, and I was just like, oh crap, here comes Steven to get killed, right? It's like, no, I was like, you can't kill him now. He just redeemed himself. He actually has become a slightly better dude. So you're going to kill him off like that? It's like, no, they don't. He actually ends up kind of saving the day, because Jonathan gets knocked down, the bat gets out of his hand, and then just Steven goes over and starts wailing on the monster, dude. That was like, wow, go you. You're not as much of an asshole anymore. You're still a little bit of a douche, but you kind of redeemed yourself for that. So that was pretty impressive. Speaking of Barbara, since I brought her up, I feel so bad for her. Like, legitimately, Nancy has to feel terrible, because it's like, Barbara would have never been in that position if she had just listened. If she had just never lied and went to that party to hang out with them. If she had left when Barbara wanted to, that wouldn't have happened. I pretty much had a feeling Barbara was dead after that first thing, where it's like the monster's right there and it got her. Will, I guess, was fortunate enough that he was able to kind of stay quick step ahead of it. I mean, granted, Barbara was knocked out when she shifted to the veil, so it gave the monster time to stay close by to feed. I feel like she wasn't knocked out that long, but it's kind of sad, because basically, while Nancy is having sex with Steven, her best friend is being brutally murdered. And we ended up seeing the aftermath of that much later on. It's just like her stomach's like ripped open and everything. It's just like, you feel so bad for her. Especially because Nancy went through so much trying to track her down, so. I guess that shows you just how impressive Will is for being a little kid. The entire time, he stayed one step ahead of that thing. Like, Barbara got immediately brutally murdered, but he was in there for, a week? And he kept avoiding that thing? I mean, granted, I was wondering about that, though. It seemed like he was getting sick. I was like, oh, is it just because maybe he got wet or something and he wasn't able to dry off and he's just super cold? But it's like, no. They ended up bringing it up that basically the air there is very toxic. So it was, he was breathing it for like over a week. So it finally took its toll on him. Because it does seem like, well, there were points that kind of disproved it. Because I was wondering, does light not work in that world? Because every time, when Nancy first went over there and her flashlight started messing up, and it's like, oh, maybe that's why every time the veil, the monster shifted or something from the other world affected this world, it always messed with the lights, because lights don't. I know it doesn't really make sense, but it's like I was under the impression that lights didn't work in that world. But we had Hooper and Joyce there with the lights, so they were working perfectly fine the entire time. So I was actually really surprised at how well everything came together for like everybody believing everything. It's like, oh, like Nancy seeing the monster, the faceless monster, and then Jonathan piecing together like, wait, did it not have a face? It's like, how did you know? It's like basically my mom's been raving like a lunatic about some monster through the walls, and it's just like, I'm surprised things worked out that way. That it's just like everyone came, like the belief was there, It's like, because everything was kept secret from everyone because it's like no one will believe us. I mean, I felt so bad for Joyce because it's like, yeah, you speaking some crazy crap. We as the audience know you're telling the truth, but everyone else looks at you and think you're nuts. So that was kind of a shame. Even it got to the point even Jonathan started kind of doubting her. I did love that little tiny storyline about the fact is that their dad came back, but he only came back because he knew it's like, oh yeah, our son's body was found and we could sue for that and make some money. I was like, you just came here for money, you asshole. You up here trying to make her feel better, but like, no, you're crazy. You're acting a little crazy, but we can get you some help, Go, deal with your grief. He's there fixing the hole in the wall that she put, when she slashed through it with the axe. That was just crazy to me, and he never popped up. He popped up those 2 times, and it was just never mentioned again. And speaking of Will's body, I love that. That was I was like wondering like what I was like. Okay, they faked it somehow. Did they get someone's body that looked similar to him or something? And then the mom was Joyce was asking specifics like, oh, he has like a birthmark on his left arm or something like that. But then I was like, okay, the body looks just like Will's, and then he starts touching it. And I was like, whoa. Like Hooper started touching it and it wasn't right, and he cut into it and there's like cotton on his. I was like, dude, that is some twisted crap. I mean, they were you got to give that like facility props. They are government affiliated, so it's kind of like, yeah, they know how to cover their tracks and keep a secret. I mean, they even moved Barb's car because I was like, they brought that up. It was something that brought up in the conversation. It's just like, because you remember specifically. Nancy had found her car, like you remember, because she parked it a little ways away from the Steven's house, and she looked in the car, and that's when she was starting to get really nervous about the whole Barbara situation, which we never actually saw her parents again. We saw her mom, but her mom was never brought up again, so it's just kind of like, I guess, it makes you wonder how did they explain that, like, it's just like, oh, Barbara, she's gone, it's like, or, I don't know, like, how do you explain that? I think it's probably a little bit easier just to kind of leave that up to your imagination. I mean, technically it doesn't, because it's like, how do you explain that? Do you be like, yeah, your daughter, she's dead? Where's her body? I don't know. Can't give you an answer to that. Or do you just lie to her and be like, oh, your daughter, yeah, she ran away. She's living a happy life somewhere. Kind of give her that false sense of security, I guess. But and there was that guy at the beginning, was his name Benny, the one who first helped Eleven. I felt so bad for him because I thought he was going to be someone that, we probably see, once or twice. It's, I was thinking like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's going to be the one that kind of acts as kind of a, I guess, guardian for 11. I thought he's going to be like someone like, kind of mediator for her or something, and then like the moment that lady popped up and pulled a gun on her and shot him, I was like, wow, I just thought you'd pop up more. It's like, nope, you're already dead. Well, that sucks. We never actually got to see who it was, but they did bring it up that there were at least like 6 other people missing, that like in the time since that all happened, that the 6 of them, there's been like 6 people missing. I can't remember if that was including Will or not. And I also love the fact is, I'm sorry, I'm just bouncing all over the place. It's like whatever's coming to my mind. But I love the fact is that it's like, it's like that world opening up wasn't just like, it just happened. It's like, no, it happened because of that dude and his experiments. He pushed 11 to open that door. He didn't directly do that. He basically wanted her to make contact with the monster. It freaked her out. Her powers, like, exploded, and she ended up tearing a hole between this dimension and that dimension. So, and I also like the development we get from Hooper and Joyce, which I'm surprised they didn't hook up at the end. I was kind of thinking maybe it was going to go that route, but I guess in his in Hooper's mind, it's probably like, yeah, it's a little a little distasteful hooking up with you after helping you get your son back after this whole situation. It's like me like trying to take advantage of the fact is that I helped you or something. I mean, I don't know. I just thought maybe it was kind of brought up that maybe they have a past. It wasn't really touched on because it does seem like Hooper does get around. Like, I mean, I love that whole scene in the library and one of the other cops was like, the librarian? Really? He's just kind of like, because he didn't call her back or whatever, so. But I like their development. It's like on Joyce's part, it's like the grieving mother who knows like everything she's seeing is crazy. It's like the whole light situation, which oh my goodness, was that whole situation where like she has the lights and then she's writing out the alphabet. I was like, that is genius. I don't think I've ever seen anyone set something up like that. It's usually in a situation because it started off with being like a yes and a no. You know, one light means yes. I mean, the light turning on means one is yes and two of the lights cutting on means no. And the moment she came up with that alphabet, I was like, that is genius. I've never seen anyone in a situation like that where it's like, oh, you're trying to contact somebody from the great beyond. I've never seen anyone do that. I mean, granted, I guess it makes sense because it's very similar to a Ouija board, because that didn't occur to me just now. It's like, oh, basically you're taking the premise of a Ouija board, but still, like, you gotta admit, that's pretty impressive. Like, on the fly, just using the lights as alphabets, you know, writing the letter they represent underneath, and he's like sending her messages like that. So, and then on Hooper's part, like, the way it started off, it makes Hooper seem like he was a bit of an asshole, just kind of like, oh god, I'm not trying to deal with Joyce right now, just let me get my coffee and my, you know, contemplate. But it's like, oh crap, she's here. It's just kind of like, I love the fact is that the whole conversation about like, Will gets picked on by the way he's dressed, and then like Hooper's like, wait, what's wrong with his clothes? It's like, I don't know, does that matter? And he's like, maybe. Like, he just seemed like such a reluctant cop, but once things start, he's like, whoa, there is actually something fishy here. He actually started going more and more and deeper into it, and it's very impressive he ended up going as far as he did. I did like the fact is he got to that guy who basically found, quote-unquote, Will's body, and he basically was like, yo, I was paid to find it and call it in and make sure no one got too close to Will's body, and it's just like, pretty impressive. I mean, it was kind of sad when you actually learned a little bit more about his background. The fact is, he had a little girl named Sarah who he lost. It seems like she was sick because we ended up seeing her like in the final episode, hooked up, you know, in a hospital. Maybe it was cancer or something. At first, I was thinking like, oh, does she have asthma or is she having a panic attack because she couldn't like catch her breath? So maybe I don't know, whatever it was, it killed her in the end. It was like sad. And it seems like he was married. I mean, him and his daughter Sarah's wife, Sarah's mother, he ends up calling her at one point in the episode, in the series, because he's just kind of like, and I guess with everything that's going on, it's got him thinking a lot about Sarah, and he's just, I guess, you know, when he was on the phone with her, he just wanted kind of some reassurance, you know, and just let her know that he doesn't blame her for what happened, that he doesn't regret that time they spent together. It's like, yes, it led to something sad, but it doesn't take away the happy times they had together. But then you hear her kind of like with her new baby and her baby's crying, and you hear him he's just kind of wants to hurry up and get off the phone, just like, I just want you to be okay. And she's like, before she can really finish, she's already hanging up, because it's kind of hard because he wasn't able to move on after his daughter died. Most likely the reason why their marriage fell apart, but she's got a new guy and she's got a baby, so it's just, you know, probably a lot to handle in his situation. So something was popping in the back of my head, the whole 11. Really like the fact is that she was just called 11. I mean, granted, Mike called her L. I did like the fact is that they kissed, and it was just kind of like, it was an obvious thing of like they both liked each other. It just never got to that point. It is kind of one of those moments. It's kind of like a Wizard of Oz moment. You know, it's like, oh, Scarecrow, I'll miss you most of all. So it's kind of a middle finger to Tin Man and a Cowardly Lion. It kind of happened like that in this series with her saying goodbye, Mike. Not really saying nothing to Lucas or Dustin, but it's like, it kind of makes sense. You get the symbology there, but it's just, to me, I just found it funny. That was super sad. Like, the fact is, like, she sacrificed herself like that. And, you know, Like, it was pretty cool. It looked like when she used her powers to kind of rip that thing apart. It's like her powers are just so awesome. It's just like ranging from flipping a van to making a kid stop and piss himself, and then breaking his arm from a distance, and stopping Mike when he fell off. He jumped off that cliff and was like about to fall, but she stopped him midair and made him fly. Which, let's talk about that bully kid for a minute. What a little shit! Pulling out a knife like that, chasing him. I was like, what kind of psychopath is he? Is that what bullies were like in the 80s or something? I mean, that is some crazy shit. Like, who does that? It's like, I know you somehow made me stand there and piss on myself. You did some kind of nerd geek crap to me or something. What did you do? It's like, dude, but pulling a knife on somebody? You're a freaking psychopath. I did like the fact is that the dude that he's kind of always rolling with, the dude that likes to pick on them, the other dude, he basically bailed on him when that bully kid was standing there pissing himself. It's like, he's covered in piss, everyone's laughing at him, and they move on, and even his friend just kind of like, well, left him there standing in his own piss. So it's like, dude, you kind of deserve that. You deserve your freaking arm broken. You're such a jerk. It's that knife thing. I cannot let it go. Who the hell does that? He is such a little shit. By the end of it, though, it does make you wonder, like, how much does everyone else know outside of this group? Because I figured by the time this series ended, it'd only be the main characters that we've been following around pretty heavily. Joyce, Hooper, the kids, Nancy, Jonathan, and Joyce. I figured they'd be the only ones that really, really knew the truth. But, you know, you have Steven who knows it to a certain degree, but it's like, does Mike's mom know the truth after, you know, everything that went down, where basically, you know, in that, in the school building, there's basically a whole bunch of armed military dudes, some government agents dead, you know, most likely chomped to bits by that monster. It's like, we never really got 100% of a look at what it looks like when that thing kills things. Like, something, I will throw this out there. It's just, I don't know if anyone else will get this. Did anyone else think of Until Dawn when they were in the woods? It was Nancy and Jonathan, and they were trying to kill that deer, and it got dragged away. The first thing that came to my mind was Until Dawn, because there was a similar situation with Mike and Jessica. You know, it's a video game. Maybe, you know, you might know what I'm talking about, but to me, that was just kind of like that instantly. I was like, that's very Until Dawn-esque. I did like that about this show too. It's like, it did kind of have like a dark horror-y feel to it, especially when it came to that monster. Like, especially when, speaking of, you know, being in those woods with the deer, when Nancy went inside that tree and was hiding from the thing, I was like, dude, Nancy, get the hell out of there. And it's just like, I didn't think Jonathan was going to get her out in time. I was like, oh crap. Especially when he walked away from the hole in the tree. I was like, oh god, it's going to close up, isn't it? It looks like it's closing up. Oh man, Nancy is screwed. She's screwed. And then Jonathan went back. I was like, oh, come on, stick your hand through. But before he could stick his hand through, Nancy already stuck her hand through. He pulled her out. I was like, oh, get her, get her, get her. I was like, oh, the monster's going to drag her back, isn't it? But no, he pulled her out and it closed. I was like, oh, thank goodness, Nancy. I didn't think they were going to kill her or anything, but I thought it was going to be a situation where, like, she ended up getting stuck on the other side. I thought she was going to basically what I was basically thinking, she would either spend the entire rest of the series there, and Will would be there to help her out, or I thought he'd run up and like, whoa, Nancy, come here, and like, hi. I guess Barbara wasn't fortunate enough to run into Will, because he probably could have helped her survive. That was really sad. I feel so bad for Nancy, because it's like, she spent so much time trying to, you know, track down Barbara. You know, that's her best friend, dude. You know, especially because things didn't end off on the best note with them. You know, it's just, they kind of almost, things left off in a bit of an argument, so that was kind of sad. But just overall, a fantastic series. Like, I can honestly say, you should recommend this show to anyone. It's very interesting. It does very interesting things. I feel like it's not your typical story. I did like the fact that it's set in the 80s too, because part of me wonders, like, why in the 80s? Why not any other time period? But maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's particular reasons I'm not paying attention to. I don't know. I guess making it set in the 80s makes things very interesting, so. It does bring up a lot of questions that you're not 100% sure. There's a whole thing with Hooper, like that he opens up that thing at the end, and he, puts in waffles and something else, some other food. Is that supposed to be as a remembrance to 11? Is that what that's supposed to be about? Plus, we saw, like, before the, like, the, 1 month later, it's like, we saw the fact is that Hooper was dragged off by what we can assume are government agents. Because basically, there was that whole deal. They're like, oh, basically telling Joyce, you help us out and we'll help you with your son. And she's basically like, screw you. You knew my son was in this situation. You didn't do nothing about it. You even faked his death. Like, screw you. I'm not going to help you. And he had Hooper basically been like, yo, we know the truth. Screw you guys. Basically, like, you help us get Joyce's son back. And it's like, we'll pretend like we never saw him. And basically forget that the government was basically associated with all of this. Granted, most of the people from that facility, kind of the main faces we got to see from time to time, like the lady, the one that basically was locked and loaded and ready to shoot people, her, as well as the dad who ran the experiments, are all dead. I mean, the others died because, like, basically, I guess, squished their brains or whatever. Their eyes were bleeding and everything. I did love that, though. Like, it was just like, because it didn't even click in my brain until they were like, until Mike started, like, when 11 was like, Mike, bad. I was like, what is, and then he was like, blood. I was like, blood. I was like, oh, blood. Because it literally was part of Jonathan and Nancy's trap to get that thing, which they did a pretty bang up job with it. It's just like, I really appreciate the fact is that, Jonathan put freaking nails in the bat for that whole situation. So, but the whole thing I was going to bring up was the fact is, what was it that he talked about? Obviously, it was probably like, the government is asking you to keep your mouth shut about what you know. It's like, okay, probably. I don't know. There might be other extenuating circumstances to go along with it. Plus, the whole thing is, like, it seems like everything's back to normal. Obviously, Mike still misses 11. But then there's the whole situation with, like, at the end we see Will kind of flipping out a little bit. Like, he's throwing up and some kind of little worm thing goes down the drain, which to me sets it off being like, okay, this is about to turn into something else. Plus the fact is, like, for a moment he switches back to the veil, but he doesn't tell anybody. So I don't know. Like, because the question is, will the show be brought back for a second season or not? I don't know. Because, like, with the way the story is told, it's kind of like, it seems like a one and done type of series, but it's like there's so much stuff that's left open. Maybe they're leaving it open to the point to be like, if you want to bring us back for a second season, we have some ideas on where to carry the story at. I'd like that to be like the case that it is a second season, but to me it feels like a one and done type of series. Because even when I started watching, I was like, with the way this story is like, how would you continue this in future seasons? I was like, maybe make it different time periods, different characters, like basically expand on the Veil of Shadows a little bit more. Essentially, find out what else exists there, like, because the government is definitely going to keep researching that now that they know that it exists. But it makes you wonder, like, are all the doorways closed now? Like, especially the one at that facility, that was never really touched on. So I guess, with the way they are, like, the doorway's already been opened, so I don't think you can ever close it back. There's always those doorways that were, like I said, with the tree, for example, or in their house, it's like the doorway's opened and they closed. So did the one in the facility close, or is that still open? I don't know. Like I said, would like to see it in season 2. Like, I'd be curious to see what they would do. If I feel like maybe they could continue this, but more likely they'll probably like, hey, we'll reference stuff from this season, as well as maybe make some characters make reappearances, because it's like, oh, the same thing is going down, but it's in a different town, or maybe a different time period, like, different decade or whatever. And it's like, oh, the same thing is going down, but there's going to be past characters referencing like that from this season. They're being like, oh, this is what's going down or something. I don't know. I would like to see 11 come back somehow, but it's like, how would she? Like, what exactly did she do to the monster? Like, when she kind of ripped it apart, we saw part of it flying towards her, and then they both vanished. So, like, did she kill it, or did she kind of rip it out of this existence and back into the other dimension? And is that where she is too? So many questions like that. Like I said, really enjoyed it. Cannot recommend this enough. If you have someone that thinks might be interested in something like this, do recommend it to them. Show some love. That's all I'm saying. I do apologize. The fact is, I've been kind of all over the place with this. I just, trying to keep everything straight in my head, but it's just I go from point A to V to Q to C. My mind just works like that. I can't always do things in order, especially when I'm covering an entire series like this. It's just my brain gets a little jumbled with things, so it's just like I spew whatever comes to my mind at the time. So, but yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.